So let us try and write the code for this is2Power function. Before we write the code, I just quickly want to show you our main function. So in the main function, we're calling our is2Power function on different arguments. So we are checking is 0 a power of 2, is 1 a power of 2, 3, 8, and 12. And of course, we're expecting that the answer is correct or true for only 1 and 8. And remember, our function is going to return a 1 if the number is a power of 2, and is going to return a 0 otherwise. So we're expecting to see answers that are either 0 or 1. So far, of course, we haven't written any code. It turns out in C you can still run such a function, but you're going to get nonsense values. So you see that for 0 it happens to return 1, but for the other arguments 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 8, and 12, it has returned some nonsense values. So it's something to remember that you have to write all the code, otherwise you may get garbage values. So let's write the cases. Remember, we have said that the first case is if n is 0, and we have to write double equals if n double equals 0. In that case, we want to return that it's not a power of 2, and we have agreed that 0 is the value we are going to use to represent false. The next case is if n is 1, again double equals. In that case, we want to say yes, it is a power of 2, so we're going to use 1. Let's quickly check if these cases work. So once again, I will just save my code and run it. And we notice that the first two cases is2Power 0, it returns 0. 0 is not a power of 2. And is2Power 1, it returns 1. It is a power of 2. The others are still garbage because we don't have an else case to handle these numbers that are neither 0 nor 1. So let's go ahead and write the else condition. So what do we have to check? We have to check is n even, and is n by 2 a power of 2. So the way we check if n is even is as follows. We take n, and then we take the remainder, which is represented with the percent symbol. So n is even if n remainder 2 is equal to 0. So this is how we check if n is even. If we wanted to check if n is odd, we would say n remainder 2 is 1. So when we take n remainder 2, we're either going to get 0 or 1. Here we're checking is n remainder 2 equal to 0, so that's checking if n is even. So we have to check two conditions. This is the first condition and another condition. So the other condition, we have to first join them with an and this is how we write and, two ampersand operations. It turns out in C, a single ampersand also means something. So we have to remember, just like with double equal to and single equal to, double ampersand and single ampersand mean different things. So we have to check two conditions, this condition, and we have to check if n by 2 is a power of 2. N by 2 we know how to write, that's just n by 2, right? But how do we check is it a power of 2? Well, we have a function to do that, right? Our function is called is2Power. So why don't we just call that function here? We are calling the function on the smaller value n by 2, just like in mathematics we are defining being a power of 2 in terms of checking if n by 2 is a power of 2. So this is the expression that we want to return. Of course, we need a return statement and we need a semicolon. So let's read it. If n is 0, no, that's not a power of 2. If n is 1, yes, that is a power of 2. Otherwise, check two conditions. Condition 1, n has to be even. and condition 2, n by 2 has to be a power of 2. So we have just written our first recursive function, and when we run it, hopefully everything will be correct. Now we have only checked these cases. It could be that our code still has some errors, in which case it would be good to try and test a few more cases just to see if we can try and uncover those errors. But it turns out in this case we have actually done a good job. We have just translated our mathematical definition into a recursive function. I quickly want to show you what would happen if we made a mistake and used a single equal to. So I have deliberately made a mistake and used a single equal to. I have told you that this actually means something in C programming, but I haven't yet told you what it means. I'm going to run this code, and it is running, and it has returned a non-zero exit code. So something terrible happened. Notice that in my main, I have a return 0. So I didn't return this horrible number. Something else happened in this code. And this is what I mean by being very, very careful about your single equal tos and double equal tos. If you're not careful, these kinds of nasty things can happen. And sometimes the error is because of exactly this mistake that we tend to make as beginners. So please avoid this. When you're checking if two things are equal to each other, you must use the double equal to, not the single equal to.